what do you do if you have one floor that's not even with another floor and you want to run hardwoods from one area or one room into another room, and there's a disparity on floor heights or the floors are uneven. This particular case, it's a 63-year-old house with multiple additions, so it's kind of tricky. I want all these hardwoods to look like they're flat and perfectly flat from room to room. And so there's some challenges because of the age of the house, the way it was built. So the way that I'm doing this, you can see I've got some shims under this. There's 3/4 inch subfloor here in the entryway. And you can see I've got shims about every 8 inches or so to bring this threshold plate up nice and flush and level to the rest of the entry. So now I'm ready to come into this room, which is the living room, and I've got to get this floor level to that plywood subfloor so that my hardwoods flow perfectly flat across there and I don't have any weird bumps or valleys there. Here's what I'm doing. I'm taking a piece of 30-pound felt that's going to be my vapor barrier before I put down my subfloor. I'm taking a piece of scrap 3/4 inch plywood to simulate my actual new subfloor. And then I'm taking a scrap piece of the hardwood flooring. It's the same as the flooring that's going to be coming in this room. And I'm going to set that on that. So that's my vapor barrier, my subfloor, my hardwoods. So now I can figure out whatever the disparity is between this and this, that's how much I need to shim up along this line to get a nice flat transition from room to room. I'm using a 2-foot level because that's enough to get me on plane. Pushing down on the level on this side, make sure that I'm flat to this floor, and now I end up with a space down here. Then I can take my spacer blocks, there's a 1/2 inch block, and see if I can slide that underneath that. Yeah, I can slide, if I can slide that under without lifting up the level off of this edge, then I know I'm good to go. And I can just barely get it under there. So I think 1/2 inch would be fine. So I put a piece of tape here and I wrote 1/2 inch. So that once I get this tar paper laid down, I know right in front of this tape, I need a little 1/2 inch shim block, probably 4 or 5 inches long, that I can staple down to the floor so that when I lay my new subfloor down on top of that, I know that my hardwood floor is going to come up perfectly flat and level to this flooring that's coming out across this. Got a couple of ridges. I screwed these boards down really good to the joist, but I still have a little peak here at the seams. Before I put my new 3/4 inch subfloor down, I want to plane this down a little bit so I don't have that ridge translate into the new 3/4 subfloor. Because I had to shim up over here about a 1/2 inch in order to get this flat from this floor onto the new subfloor here. Of course, that created a situation where I've got a gap now under my subfloor along this line out this way. So what I had to do is put shim strips here, tapering them down where the level is will be 0, and up here is a 1/2 inch or less. So we've got a 1/2 inch here, 3/8 here, a 1/4 inch here, and where the level is at, it'll be 0. And that way things will be nice and flat from this elevated edge down to here. And what I've ran is just some shim strips in between at the right thickness as well, and space those so that there's not too much of a span from one shim strip to the other, so we don't have to worry about the 3/4 inch subfloor, having any spring to it or anything like that. And of course, the new subfloor sheets will get screwed down through these shim strips into the subfloor and even into the joists in some spots. So everything will be sandwiched nice and tight in there so that we don't have to worry about any movement or any squeaks or bounce. Drop. Set it down and I'll slide it down.
A second. If I stand on this side, it's gonna, because there's both. Yep, it's going. Yep. Okay. Yep, keep going. Almost, one more.
So yesterday we got these first 3 sheets, 4x8 sheets of the 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood down, and got that all shimmed up along this edge. So what we did is we started up about a 1/2 inch here, and we just kept going thinner and thinner using 1/8 inch plywood, 1/4 inch plywood, and tar paper to taper it from here down to here. So now we've got to come in and do these sheets here. And what we're doing here, if you can see this blue snap line here, that's 8 feet, so that's where the next sheet's going to end. So just like we did here, we need to taper this from whatever these shims are down to 0 down to here. And so what I've come up with, the best way to do that, is I've got a pile of 6x6 squares of 30-pound felt and a pile of 6x6 approximately by 1/8 of an inch thick plywood shims here. And using those, we will create blocking underneath the sheet of plywood. And if you can see this grid, what I've got here is this is where my joist lines are. Before I put down this tar paper, I measured out and marked on a piece of paper where all my joists were. So what we'll be able to do is come right off of these blocking lines through there, and then put the shim blocks that we need under each one of these intersections where the joist and the shim lines will intersect. And by doing that, we can make a nice solid floor. And I actually am screwing down through, same as I did over here. I actually screw through this new subfloor where the shim blocks are. And I'm using long enough screws to go through this, through the shim block, through this old original subfloor. And the screws I'm using are long enough to go down a good inch, inch and a half and bite into all these joists that run this way through the floor. So we're actually pinching, sandwiching all these materials down into that joist, which is going to be a lot more solid of a floor. It's going to be a lot less apt to creak or squeak down the road. So I'm just going to set up and start using little shim pieces to see what I need in each of these spots. I wanted to share how I'm making a flat and level floor out of an unlevel and non-flat floor by using some shim material and a little bit of time and my 8-foot level. So now I want to come down to the next joist, which is this joist here, and ask myself the question, what's it going to take to get this one done? Can I do 3/8? Nope. So I can do a 1/4 inch with the shims, and then it's going to come back down to the tar paper. Can I get 2 tar papers in there? That's a little tight. Even one's a little tight, but I'm going to leave it where it's at and just use 2 1/16 of an inch shims. There we go. I've got 2 1/8 inch shims here, but it wants to move my level. It doesn't want to go underneath there, so I'm going to have to use 1. Then I can grab my little scraps of felt. 3 is too tight. 1 gives me a little bit of drag. 1 it is. So I marked out a grid on this particular panel. The vertical lines represent the shim blocks that run like these over here. And the horizontal lines, like this one, represent the joists that are underneath this floor and running side to side. So as long as I put screws in the intersections of these areas, I know that I'm going to be going through my shim block and all the way down into the joist with these 3.5 inch screws, and there won't be any squeaking, no creaking, no sagging, no spring or bounce. It's going to be a super stable, nice floor with a perfect transition from this room to this room, and perfect transitions into there and over into this room over there, that side. And then we're going to have to do some shimming up, I think about 1/2 inch in the sunroom, and we already bought some plywood for that to bring it up to the new level of this once we get to that threshold here. And then all these areas here and through all these areas are all going to be on one level plane, with the floor flowing completely through every space without any weird transition strips or change of height of transition or anything like that.
We're doing good. One more. There you go.
Well, we can't believe it, but we actually got it done. We got all this subfloor down. We got all the transitions into all the different spaces and rooms looking good and flat. We're ready to start the hardwood floors. It's been months and months and months of prep and work and all sorts of toil to get to this point. We're so excited. And thanks a lot for following along with it. And please watch the other videos about how we made this floor strong. We fixed rot. We put a beam underneath and all those kinds of things to make this a really strong, flat and level floor. And hey, if you got any comments or ideas of other ways that we can do stuff like this, please share it in the comments. We'd love to see it. And if you find this content interesting or entertaining or helpful in any way, please consider subscribing, help out the channel. And we thank you guys for watching and following along. We hope that you follow along in the rest of this journey. We still have so much work to do. Thanks for watching.